Hey, pastors and leaders. Matt here, one of the pastoral support team members with Leaders Following Christ and the Pastor Circle team. I hope your new year is kicking off great. I want to take a few minutes this morning to talk about seasons. Now, I want to talk about one very specific season. It's actually the season that where I live right now, we find ourselves in, and that's the season of winter. Now, here in North Carolina, winter can be a little wild because, just for instance, last week we had temperatures that ranged in the highs of around 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and then the lows were probably somewhere in like 35 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. However, this weekend they're anticipating that our lows will be somewhere around 7 degrees Fahrenheit and our highs will be somewhere around 20 degrees Fahrenheit. So they're talking about a weekend snowstorm coming in and all this. Seasons can be a little weird. And like I said, right now in North Carolina, it's winter and it's cold. And during cold seasons, there's a lot of things that personally I like to do. I like to bundle up. I like to read a good book. I like to not go outside because it's way too cold out there. And I like to kind of slow down a bit. And that's what I want to talk about today. The way we're going to talk about winter and specifically your ministry in a winter season is we're going to look at it through the vein of trees. Okay, now ride this out with me. We're going to go a little bit into a bit of a science class together. But first, I want to start by pointing out why it's okay for us to talk about our ministry and likening it to trees. We're going to do that by going to Scripture. All right, I want us to jump to Jeremiah chapter 17. We're going to look at verses 7 and 8 there. It says, "But blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, whose confidence is in him. They'll be like a tree that's planted by the water, that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. It has no worries in a year of drought, and never fails to bear fruit." We see all throughout Scripture that we are likened to trees. In fact, if you've been, we're likened to nature even. If you've been listening the last couple of months through some of our conversations we've been having, we've talked a lot about bearing fruit and what does it look like to bear fruit and how do we bear fruit in ministry, that kind of thing. So I want to lay a precedence that there's a lot of times where we can see Scripture pointing to nature to kind of show us where we should go, what we should do. In the midst of that, we can see that nature has a cycle for seasons. So we can see that in specific seasons, nature does something specific. And in this instance, we're going to talk about what trees do when winter comes. Here's where we're going to get a little bit into the science. Okay, there's two different types of trees that we're going to look at today. There is deciduous trees. Don't worry, there's not going to be a quiz. You don't have to remember the name of this. And there's evergreen trees. Let's talk about the two different tree types. So deciduous means that they drop their leaves during the winter. Okay, so like when it's fall, we start to see leaves falling, right? That's not just something that takes place just because. The tree is actually doing something important there. All right. There's also evergreen trees. These are the ones that you see us put up as things like Christmas trees, right? They're the ones that hold on to like their needles. The needles do something specific as well during the winter that we're going to talk about as well. But I want us to take an overall perspective of trees in wintertime and see how we can liken that to our ministry, because I believe that there's some really good grains of truth in the midst of this that we can see and we can learn from. All right, so let's start with deciduous trees. Okay, deciduous trees, when winter comes around, they do a handful of things. Number one, they drop their leaves. The whole reason they do that is because the tree itself is trying to conserve what's important to it: water and energy. Its perspective, I guess, is if I don't need to send energy out to these leaves, there's more that I can store inside to prepare for the next season. Something else that deciduous trees do is they enter this state of like dormancy. We could liken this to something like hibernation, where its perspective is there's not going to be any growth. We're not trying to do anything big right now. Really what we're trying to do is rest and get through what we're in the midst of. All right, so that is deciduous. The other tree type is evergreen. And evergreen does some similar things to deciduous trees, but not the exact same. Number one, they don't drop their needles. Instead, they produce like a waxy coating that goes across the top of their needles, and that, similar to deciduous trees, is so that it can help reduce water loss. So it's trying its best to keep its energy, keep its what gives it life inside. Okay? And while it doesn't enter hibernation, it does slow down its metabolism to a crawl, so that its perspective is we need to conserve energy. Now, all trees do this thing that's called cellular hardening. All right, and cellular hardening is this concept, or this function where it literally hardens the inside of the tree and makes it resistant to things like ice damage. All right, so there's tree 101 for you. All right, we have deciduous trees, we have evergreen trees, and then this concept of all trees doing this cellular hardening. Now that we've covered that, let's talk about ministry, and let's talk about why winter, just like it's important for trees, is important for ministry. Because you see, during winter, the tree isn't just trying to protect itself, it's trying to prepare for what's next. All right, the tree in coming seasons is going to have to do things like grow fruit. It's going to have to create new growth, get bigger, get larger. It's going to have to move into the hard season. For what we see as this beauty on the outside is actually a lot of work that this tree is putting in to create these flowers and these fruits and all these beautiful things for us. Ministry needs to be in a rhythm, similar to what we see with trees in nature. It can be really, really easy to move from exciting season of growth to exciting season of growth without taking time to winter. For instance, again, it's middle of January right now, which means we just made it through the Christmas season. And Christmas, in many Christian church contexts, is kind of like the big one, right? This is when everyone's coming to church for the most part, at least here in the States, that's true. You're going to have aunts, uncles, grandmas, cousins, like the entire family is coming to church, because it's just kind of like this concept of like, well, it's Christmas, that's what we do, we go to church. And so we normally at Christmas time have a lot of new faces, a lot of opportunity to spread the gospel, a lot of opportunity to do some really amazing ministry and share the love of Christ. And it can be really easy after a season like Christmas to be like, man, that was so great. Look at all of the new growth we have. Look at all of the fruit that has been grown. Let's keep going. And in some time frames, I can see where that can help. But in a general standard rhythm, I would say we need to be aware that we need to slow down and maybe consider what winter looks like in our ministries. So what do we do in winter? Well, like I said earlier, we've got some trees that enter dormancy. They just hibernate. They go, okay, we've done the hard work, all right, and we need to prepare to do it again. So what are we going to do? We're going to gather our resources. We're going to pull them in tight, and we're going to take a moment to just, Other trees, the evergreens, they at the very least slow down their metabolism. They go, okay, we don't have to run at 120% right now. In fact, we're going to cut back. We're going to look for things that maybe don't need our energy and our attention right now, and we're going to scale back, right? If the trees do it, then why shouldn't we? So is there anything that you can go dormant on right now? Is there anything that you can slow your metabolism down for? When I posed this idea to our pastor circle group, we had some really great responses. One pastor specifically talked about how during this season of ministry, the way that they slow down, the way they kind of go into hibernation, so to speak, is that they cut back on things like their small groups and their Sunday schools and their special events like that. Because they know they're asking volunteers to work these things. They are asking small group leaders to lead, and they're asking themselves and their staff and their leaders to really put in a lot of work. On top of that, families during this season kind of have this natural desire to slow down, to step back, to take a couple of breaths. And so if we can create space where people don't feel like they have to keep going and doing, that I believe can help our ministries go into a slowed metabolism or a state of hibernation, So my question to you is, how can you, in the season of winter in ministry, slow down? How can you go dormant a little bit to conserve energy for what's next in your ministry? All right, so my next question to you is there anything that you need to maybe drop for now? All right, perhaps you are like the deciduous tree and you've got all of these leaves. You've got a whole lot happening and a whole lot that's requiring your energy. Maybe during this season, it's a good time to step back and say, okay, what around me, what am I connected to that could maybe drop off? That maybe last year we did this program or we did this thing just because it's what we do, it's what's expected. What going into this next season should we drop? Ask the hard questions. Does this aspect of our ministry actually produce anything? Or are we doing it just because we've always done it this way? I think there's opportunity here for us to look at maybe the leaves that we're carrying and decide what do we not need to give energy to right now. And maybe there are things that we need to give energy to. Okay, maybe we're more like the evergreen and we say, no, we gotta hold on to this. This is life-changing ministry. These are things that are really, really working in our community. Fine. Then let's put a layer of protection around it. All right. Let's build up that waxy coating like an evergreen tree does to help reduce our energy going anywhere else. Let's really hone in and say, okay, if this program, if this small group, if this ministry is working, let's really narrow down what makes it work and figure out what is it in this ministry that we need to protect. I also want to talk about that concept of cellular hardening, where the trees kind of bring everything together to make it as resistant as possible against damage to ice and the outside elements. I believe in ministry and in our personal lives, there's certain things that we really need to protect. It is really easy for the enemy to step in and find that thing that has weakness and tear us apart from the inside out. What in your ministry or in your life could use cellular hardening? I know one thing that I have to be mindful of in ministry in my life is my family. It's really, really easy in ministry to accidentally put them to the sidelines in fast, hard, or busy seasons. It's really easy to say, okay, my focus has to be this. This is kingdom work. And you're right, it is. What you do, the way you serve, the way you minister is important. But your first ministry is your family. So make sure that you are protecting that family. All right. If you're married, plan date nights in the midst of your winter season. Plan opportunities to connect and rebuild and build on top of that relationship that you have with your spouse. All right, because having spousal support is one of the best feelings in the world in the ministry space. All right. If you have kids, set time aside to make sure that you're connecting with them during the winter season. Set up times where you just hang out with them, where you play, where you do the school events. If they have school, lunch where you can bring cupcakes to school one day. Find ways to show your love and affection and care with your kids, because sooner or later, as we all know, they're not going to be kids anymore. And you're never going to say, man, I wish I had preached one more sermon when they were 5 or 6. You're going to say, man, I wish I had taken a little more time to be by their side. So find the things in your life that need cellular hardening, that need that protection no matter what, and build up that protection during the winter season. Go ahead and set specific parameters. All right, make boundaries in your life that during the busy seasons of ministry, during spring, during summer, when we are really cranking out fruit and we're really putting everything we have out there, I'm still going to protect this. Here's my heart behind all of this, pastors and leaders, is I want you to see that ministry, just like nature, needs winter. Winter is important. Winter is necessary, because in winter is when we prepare for growth. All right. Trees don't do this just because. They do this in preparation of what comes next. And if we don't stop in winter, then we won't have the energy needed for what comes next. We won't have the protection around the things that matters most for us to be able to produce fruit well. And we can end up falling apart, breaking, and getting torn down. That's not what Jesus wants. He wants a thriving minister, and he wants thriving ministry. Because the goal isn't to become stagnant. The goal is actually to strengthen you in preparation. So Find ways to winter this season. Find ways to look out for your ministry, to prepare for what's next, to protect what's most important, so that we can all have the most amazing growth possible come our next season.